Excellencies, colleagues, I hereby declare open the second meeting of the 53rd session of the Human Rights Council. We shall now resume the enhanced interactive dialogue on the situation of human rights in Afghanistan. First, I give the floor to the Deputy High Commissioner for her concluding remarks. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. In fact, it's actually just a response to a query about our interactions with the Taliban and what room for dialogue. Let me say we are all obviously trying to navigate the space that we have on the ground and particularly to expand the space that we have for human rights promotion and advocacy. And so we do continue to monitor trends, but we also follow up directly on individual cases with the de facto authorities. We visit prisons and places of detention, and we issue public updates and reports on emerging issues. For example, the recently returned practice of harsh corporal punishment. The office, therefore, maintains its independent but complementary role to the various mandates established by the Human Rights Council. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The rest of the queries are best handled by my fellow panelists.
Thank you, Madam, for that. And now I give the floor to Ms. Shahzad Akbar. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you for the engagement from the member states. I just have 3 quick points to make. The first one is I want you to imagine with me the future of Afghanistan in 10 years from now. A country where access to quality and comprehensiveness is not possible for women and girls, but the alternative that's being offered is religious education of a kind that is designed to radicalize. And this is not only a risk for the rights of women and girls and for future of Afghanistan in terms of women and girls' access to future justice and healthcare, as was brought up earlier, but it's also a very clear security risk for Afghanistan, for its neighbors, the region, and the world. The second point that I wanted to raise was about the public space. Taliban, in their interactions with the international community, continuously insist that they want to uphold human rights in accordance to Islamic framework. There is nothing in Islamic framework that bans women from the right to education and work, as previous speakers stated. But there's also nothing in the Islamic tradition and culture that bans people from criticizing their rulers. But Taliban have created a situation of complete tyranny where people have been harassed, detained, and even there have been cases of enforced disappearances for people posting their opposition to government or their criticism or even questions on social media. This complete attack on civic space links to the Taliban's radicalizing agenda because they understand and they know that many of their policies are in contradiction with what Afghans want. Afghans want schools and education for their daughters and for women to be able to work. And so by stifling civic space, they want to ensure that they represent to the international community the image of a society that's completely in line with their radical policies. The last thing that I wanted to raise was about the history, the fact that many of the human rights violations that we talk about today, and gender and sex-based violence, some of these were recognized by the international framework recently. And I want to link this to gender apartheid. The situation in Afghanistan, as it is right now, is akin to a gender apartheid. I am certain that one day this will be recognized. My request and my call on the member states is to stand on the right side of history and to not be seen as cooperating and as complying with a system of gender apartheid in Afghanistan. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Ms. Madina Mahabubi. Madam, you have the floor.
Excellencies, thank you for your comments and questions. I'm delighted to see such a strong support for the women and girls of my country. Afghan women and girls have always demonstrated resilience, and today, despite serious challenges, they continue to struggle for the restoration of their human dignity and respect. The international community bears responsibilities to engage and prioritize female voices from inside the country and facilitate their participation in all deliberations concerning the country and their future. because Afghans inside the country will ultimately bear the consequences of any decision taken regarding them. There is no doubt that change should be driven from inside the country. Imposing change from outside is not only ineffective, but will also create further critical challenges for us. Therefore, any investment for such causes must be driven and led by Afghans inside the country. It's important that the international community invest in and empower civil society actors that are currently in Afghanistan. Isolation is not a solution, and it will not lead to a sustainable outcome. Afghanistan needs and should be part of the global community and should be held accountable to its obligations. To reach to this cause, a meaningful collaboration of all stakeholders, including the de facto authorities, civil society actors, and the international community, are essential moving forward. I, in the meantime, call on the de facto authorities to heed to the demands of Afghans and work together with people and the international community for a meaningful and accepted solution to the current crisis in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the Permanent Representative of Afghanistan. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I would like to give my remaining time to Madam Maryam Jomi, who is a human rights defender, but at the same time a lecturer at the Herat University in Western Afghanistan. Madam Jomi, you have.
Thank you so much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The toughest thing and the simplest thing, actually, at the current situation is to talk about Afghan women. So it is very simple. You can say women or woman, Afghan woman, Afghanistan. It has become like an idiom, and it's become like a business right now. So, and it is really difficult that we cannot find any word in any language to describe the pain of Afghan women in Afghanistan. I, as a lecturer, a university lecturer in Herat, in Herat University, it has been actually after 10 months after the collapse of Afghanistan, I lived in Herat, and I would be able to see that that was, and I am actually, I'm giving you a sample of that here. So I could leave Afghanistan by a PhD scholarship from Afghanistan, but I more than actually about you know better that how the people of Afghanistan are living and how the 30 million Afghan women are living. They are alive, but they are not living. And one of its examples, and we have a lot of actually examples, we do have my own students that they were actually preparing in order to become experts in healthcare and psychologies and many different fields. But unfortunately, a month before I heard about their suicide, about their pregnancy, and about their forced marriages. And this is really a tough challenge. Thousands of girls and women that they could make a better life for themselves and make things work for them out. But right now they are oppressed women. They have turned into oppressed women. Unfortunately, and right now the whole world is ashamed in front of Afghan women. If the world is not able or not capable to stand against a small terrorist group like the Taliban, if the world cannot succeed them or win over them, we need to understand this, that we are regretting actually this situation, and no one is going to win. The schools are being closed. Our pain is not closure of the schools or hunger. Our pain is that no one is listening to us. It is like the death of a civilization and imagination. Thank you so much.
I now give the floor to Ms. Dorothy Estrada Tank. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Trying to address the central concerns that were expressed before and the questions posed to us, I'd like to refer to three of them that will hopefully systematize the core concerns. First, how to support women in the country and how to address specific issues such as a proactive way to support women's access to justice, how to prevent and counter forced and child marriage, and some of the basic and systemic challenges for human rights of women and girls. So the first, as we have said in the report, is to precisely support the organizations with long-term flexible funding that can really address those structural issues, privileging women-led organizations, but also to work with the men in the communities, to work against toxic masculinities, to work for a creation of a culture of human rights that really counters those root causes of discrimination. And this goes to Article 5 of CEDAW in terms of countering harmful stereotypes that place women and girls in conditions of inferiority. Secondly, we have said here that all human rights of women and girls are part of all cultures. So this is a universal standard that has been upheld by the women and girls in Afghanistan themselves. A question was posed as to, or several, how to support the activities of the working group on discrimination against women and girls, as well as these joint types of activities. And precisely the working group has identified, since 2018 especially, the gender backlash against women and girls' rights globally. So this is the most extreme example in Afghanistan, but we see that there are different retrogressions to women's and girls' rights everywhere. So supporting the work of the working group and mandates that actually look at these issues, that issue early warnings, and that raise the voices of women and girls as a matter of their everyday work, that incorporate women's and girls' voices in their everyday methodologies and activities, we think is of value to really contribute to these efforts at the national and local levels to construct a culture of human rights. So these joint initiatives, such as this mandate to the Special Rapporteur and to us, we think are creative proposals that can further these goals. And lastly, looking at the resistance of women in the country and the examples that have really inspired us and that fill us with hope even in this very serious and grave situation, we want to accompany those efforts, and we want to say to the women and girls in Afghanistan, as I did a while ago, Mashomara Faramosh Nemi Konem.
I would not forget you.
Get you, and we are asking you, all of you in this room, not to do so either.
Thank you. And finally, now I give the floor to Mr. Richard Bennett. You have the floor, sir.
Vice President. Who this morning making many of them many very powerful, compelling and moving statements. And I would like to welcome the expression of solidarity by members of the international community. However, as I said earlier, solidarity is welcome. It's not enough. What is needed is practical action. Among the questions that were asked, I heard two large baskets, one of them being what can we do to support Afghan women and girls, and the other one about accountability. In relation to the first one, what can we do, I think I don't really need to tell you, because you've been listening to Afghan women and girls already describing them, and they should be front and center. As I said earlier, I've picked up a saying that they have talked to us, not about us. There's also a question of what not to do. What to do and what not to do. And I think Afghan women have been clear about what not to do as well. Certainly engage, but don't engage in ways that empower the violators of human rights, or in any way normalize those violations or legitimize them. So that would be one of my points. I also want to touch on a couple of other issues that were raised that I felt needed more attention. One of them is the intersectional discrimination that marginalized women find. For example, Hazara women or women with disabilities. Just to give two examples, we need to note pretty strongly that issue in my opinion. I also think that we need to be careful to look at the radicalization of education and the potential security implications of that in the future that may go beyond the boundaries of Afghanistan. Finally, on the accountability issue, I think that the people of Afghanistan deserve the attention and resources of the Human Rights Council proportionate to the magnitude of the problem of the situation that exists. They also need prevention and protection. Let's think broadly about accountability. I certainly support this issue being discussed at the September session further. My own mandate was strengthened last October to be given a mandate on documenting and preserving information. Thank you.
Thank you. So this brings us to the end of this enhanced interactive dialogue. I wish to thank the Deputy High Commissioner and all presenters for their participation. We shall now take a small technical break before starting the enhanced interactive dialogue on the High Commissioner's report on the situation of human rights in Sudan.